Hi, I'm Greg Lambert with the Geek in Review, and I'm here with our friend Nikki Shaver from Legal Technology Hub. And Nikki, you're going to talk to us about the new portfolio management feature for LTH. Tell us a little more.
Yes. Hi, Greg. So we have just launched a feature that we think will be really helpful for law firms and for legal ops departments. Typically, at a law firm, especially, in the innovation team or the IT team, depending on how the firm is set out, you'll have one person who's responsible for tracking the market, which they can now, of course, do through Legal Tech Hub, but also for tracking the way that that firm is using practice technology. So, what are the solutions that they license? Which are the ones that they have looked at or piloted, and which are solutions that they may be interested in the future for other projects. And that kind of a spreadsheet can really be a significant piece of work. It's hard to maintain, and it's divorced from where a lot of firms now do their research, which is on our platform. So, at the behest of many firms, we have built out a portfolio management platform that actually sits in Legal Tech Hub in your account. So, when you log in, you can follow solutions now, but in the new feature, you can move your followed solutions between three different tabs. One for portfolio, which is where you keep your list of solutions you license. Another for reviewed, which is where you keep your list of solutions that you've looked at and for whatever reason decided not to move forwards with. And one for watching, which is for your solutions that you may have an interest in and you want to keep tabs on. You'll get updates on all of those solutions by virtue of following them in the platform, which means whenever a new feature is released or we update their profile, you'll get a notification. But also importantly, you can move solutions between those tabs at will in your account. And you can add notes. So you can add a note to say, piloted this waiting until SOC 2 certification, for example. And those notes are completely private to you in your account. So it should really allow for additional rich functionality within the platform for firms who want to use it instead of Excel. We're all for moving things into more automated, more efficient platforms. And now Legal Tech Hub can offer you one of those. So for those who do have a subscription and want to learn more, feel free to reach out to us and we'll talk you through it. But for those who are not yet subscribers and are interested, reach out to us at info@legaltechnologyhub.com. And of course, check out the platform at legaltechnologyhub.com. Thanks, Greg.
Sounds super useful. I'm gonna jump off here and then dive in and start marking what we have and what we want.
Amazing.
Welcome to the Geek in Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gabauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. And today we are joined by John Tertan, who actually said we should pronounce it Tertan, but we're going to go the more
Not
English.
quite, Greg. That was
Tertan.
actually not. That was actually
Tertan.
the first way you did it was fine.
All right, all right. So we're going with John Tertan. John is the founder of Narrative. Hey, John, welcome to the Geek in Review.
Thank you so much for having me, and great to meet everyone.
So, John, we met you at the Houston Legal Innovators event that you sponsored the other day, and you've been spending time inside like legal ops, the KM, pricing community. So, what are you hearing from those teams that's influencing your roadmap? And what do you think that legal is finally ready for in 2026?
That's a great question, Marlene. Just to kick off right from the start, so many things. So I think one, in terms of kind of a bit about narrative and what we're building, and kind of ties into what we're hearing. We're really thinking about on the big picture, how can we really agentify and improve and elevate a lot of those business of law type tasks and stuff that lawyers kind of don't like doing, but is necessary for the business. And we've really started with a pricing and analytics kind of entry point. And so that really ties into what we're hearing. And one of the things that we hear over and over again from every firm that we speak to is our data is, we'll use polite language, is
Yeah.
below average. And but we can't figure out, what are the right matters for a new piece of work that we want to price for. And our clients expect us to know all of these things. And so that is the core of what we've been building and what we've been solving and making sure that we track in terms of the KPIs and the accuracy and so on. And then it's kind of building on that is thinking, well, what else can we do? What are the further capabilities that can support not just our kind of pricing and biz ops teams, either on kind of, the financial side, but also on the marketing side? But how does that extend to the partnership and what we can do to support our partners win new work and win that work in a profitable way as well? So, because obviously every partner wants to win a deal, but we have to win the right deals and we have to win those deals in a way that makes sense for the business and for the practice. And so then tying into your kind of broader question is, and it's related to what we're building, is there's a lot of excitement in terms of all the new tech, all of the new tools that are coming to market. But I think we're entering a point in time where we really want to understand, okay, yes, this is cool. Yes, this is fancy, but so what? What is the impact, not just internally to our business, but for our clients? Because that's really what matters at the end of the day is what is the improvement in terms of quality, in terms of pricing, in terms of service level that we're able to give our clients? And how does that translate to how we're working and how we're pricing and how we're thinking about the business side of things for the firm itself, for our day to day? And that's the bit that we step in. And I think that's also been noticeable in terms of the types of conversation, the level of conversations that we had at that event, but also following around it and so on, is we're able to get into the detail and the substance. And I think fundamentally what lawyers, what the industry want is not just glitz and glam, but substance. And I think that ties in very closely with what we're doing, what I think the industry is seeing as well.
Also, like how fast that value can be turned around, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I was speaking to a Magic Circle firm today that we're starting to work with over here in the UK, and the types of estimates in terms of like how fast we can improve their day, how fast we can deliver on X, Y, Z. They were like, really? That quickly? Like we can actually kind of deliver that value? It's like, yes, of course. Like we just need the green light. And that is a bit of the change, in terms of kind of the spot in time that we're in. And I think the industry is getting quite excited and quite alive to those changes as well.
Well, let me dig on that just a little bit. So if I'm in a law firm, typically if I'm looking at narrative as my solution, tell me who I am and what my problems are that cause me to reach out to you.
Yeah, so a great question. So on the high level, it's we as a firm or a business want to either, well, and or improve stuff like realization rates, win-loss ratios, the time wasted on non-chargeable tasks or activities. Those are kind of the big KPIs. The start
Wait, we should be measuring those? Huh.
sometimes some of those should be. Uh,
Maybe.
Maybe. At least, like in terms of the first one, it seems like the industry tracks that. I think even at the top side of the market, you're looking at 18% average, like average write-offs, and write-downs. So it's big numbers. And then in terms of kind of the people, it depends by firm. By and large, just because of where we found a nice, easy entry point to start providing value quite quickly in a way that gets through InfoSec, all of those components relatively quickly. We start with those pricing finance functions and then branch out into kind of, the partnership, the senior associates and so on. Because even though we started with the pricing analytics piece, we actually have a lot of solutions on the lifecycle management, being able to show what is within scope, what is out of scope for an active project, being able to automate the work in progress updates, automate some of the outside counsel guidelines applications, and so on. And a lot of the things on our roadmap look at how can we further help both the partners and the business enhance those relationships with their clients or prospective clients. So those are kind of the types of individuals, some of the kind of the main KPIs that we're also hopefully the firm is tracking, but at least everyone cares about.
We're tracking. It's in a spreadsheet somewhere, I'm sure.
that you look at every now and then. Of course.
Update once a year. So,
Yeah.
well, John, you come kind of have a interesting background, and I mean, you've been in tech, but it's been a variety of different tech. So, travel tech, professional services, and working with the technology in those. So, I'm kind of interested in you walking us through your founder journey, and what is it that you learned in these other areas that made you want to tackle legal, but also I think made you also prepared better for legal.
Greg, that's a whole different podcast, Greg. We can go into quite a lot on that one. Yeah,
The
so in
Founders Forum, we're going to start a whole new one.
There we go.
yeah, exactly. That one is almost a kind of like a bourbon kind of session where you have to
Yeah.
you have to
It's the after conference session. Is that what
yeah,
it is?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
After dark conference. Yep. That's
Yeah. So my journey sorry, so I for everyone listening, my background, I grew up in Canada, then went to the UK for law school, then went to Freshfields. I was an attorney there in the kind of the corporate department, so M&A type work. My first introduction to tech proper was also while I was at the firm, because did a lot on the innovation side and also internal kind of change management. And so both internal, external tooling. I quite like that. And then, like you said, I kind of left and I did the kind of the entrepreneurial sprint across venture-backed companies and so on. So I think one that yes, definitely helped in terms of looking at this type of product, this type of sector. I think the customers that we're working with and want to continue building and working with as well are very mature customers. They expect you to be able to come to the table with something that is fully formed, but also a deep understanding, not just of them and their problems and what they're trying to achieve, but also the business side of things. And so even though we're relatively new, I'm able to leverage a lot of that experience to mean that actually, we have the funding, we have the right advisors, whether they're former chairmen of firms or founders of the right networks across Legal Tech Hub, Value Network, and so on, that we are able to put all of the basics in place that I think if you were a first-time founder, you wouldn't quite know how to do. So all of that kind of company building, team building, I think that helps a lot. The other thing that I think it helps with is understanding what the journey is and what that looks like. When you're relatively early, you're able to frame everything correctly and say, look, this is where we are, this is where we're going to be. As you kind of, go through those stages, it's not a surprise. You know what's coming next to a degree. I mean, like, you never know what's really coming, but because things evolve, things change. But you have that appreciation of this is what is involved in this kind of journey. This is what you can expect. This is what we bring to the table. And you're able to merge those two together in a way that is quite synergistic and hopefully quite value add.
Yeah, I noticed it when I was at TLTF that this gave me some exposure to the PE and VC money that were out there. Your example was something that a couple of the financiers were talking about. It was like, I'm looking for somebody that is just starting their second or third startup that's already done it once or twice, has exited, and is now on the next venture. And I think a lot of that is because they want somebody that knows the different pieces and understands that.
Yeah, and I think another kind of component, which is, I mean, like when I'm approaching this and kind of ties into like why we've even started this one, like, narrative and the mission that we're on, like it, to somebody who doesn't know the space, it doesn't sound, oh my God, so sexy or so, but to me, it's actually it's a clear problem area. There's like clear solutions that no one else has built. Like that specificity, that ability to say, actually, we know how to solve this. We know how to build something here and we know how to scale in a way that is meaningful. It's not the obvious port of call of someone who's never, who's never built something before. And I wouldn't have done this first if this was my first kind of project either. So, and I think
It would have
that
been your first and your last.
maybe, Greg, maybe if we do things right, Yeah.
Well, I have to disagree. I think there's a lot of people out there that think, what you're tackling is pretty sexy.
I think
And
so.
I think they'll be really thrilled. And it's funny, like you mentioned that this probably wouldn't have been your first foray, but you did have another startup, Hago, and that had major traction and real investment behind it. So what did that experience teach you about building products in sort of tough legacy heavy markets? And how did that shape the way you're approaching narrative?
I think it completely gives so much clarity and direction in terms of what's important. I think particularly it's nice because with narrative, I kind of merge a little bit of my legal background and also kind of that founder, background from the previous company. And it just makes, I don't know, if things feel quite clear in a lot of way. I mean, like there's a lot of, things that obviously require navigation and so on, but for this product to work really well, obviously we have to solve the pain point in a way that no one else has and can do, and we're already doing that. But really what it comes down to, and this is the most important thing, is can we build and foster really good relationships with the right people in the right places in the right way? That that sounds really simple, but that is actually what this is. It's making sure that, to kind of the human input, the human care, the human relationships are front and center because a lot of times when you're building like, okay, let's build a cool tech product and you say, oh, it can do this and this and this, that's great. But at the end of the day, what legal is, what we're building is all about the relationships, fostering and strengthening client law firm relationships, partner client relationships, partner pricing, partner partner relationships, and so on. And so that is what is a really helpful guiding principle and set of values for myself and for narrative that I think comes from that set of experiences in the past from kind of working in an industry where, yeah, you do have a lot of kind of legacy components and it's a very people first business. And I think that translates and holds true for legal.
A lot of times, especially in legal tech, the founders of a startup typically have worked in a large law firm and have run into some particular issue that drove them crazy while they were practicing. And then you decide this is the thing I'm going to solve. Were you running into this problem when you were practicing and innovating as a lawyer? And what is it that you said, hey, this is what it is that I need to solve, and this is what I need to build.
Because it's
Yes.
sexy. It's sexy. Remember, we
Yeah,
decided. Yeah.
absolutely. Well,
Yes.
yeah.
It was a combination. So like the business side of things, there's so many inefficiencies and frustrations that I experienced firsthand, including this. I remember once when I was junior associate, I got a bunch of partners pretty much over the weekend one time to just be like, help me like pitch for this new piece of work that a friend of mine is now big part of this kind of new Asian based, it was a Hong Kong based company, and we need to pull together an RFP reply and blah blah blah, and there was just no resources and there was no help, and I just had to phone call a bunch of partners across Brussels and London and Frankfurt on Saturday and Sunday and just be like, we just have to make this. Where do we start? And they don't even know it. That was my first kind of introduction to the problem where I was like, we really don't have anything in this space. We started with actually some of the life cycle management pieces because like I experienced that on a daily when I was an associate. And a lot of the refinement to get to where we are now with the product, like on the pricing and data piece, actually came from listening to the people that we just kept chatting to. Like it was a lot of finance directors, pricing directors, CFOs at various different firms, everything from the AM Law 100 down like Magic Circle, some of the kind of the high tier specialty practices as well. And they just kept talking about the same problems, which I had a glimpse into when I was practicing as well. And we realized that no one actually has built anything that properly solves this space. You have, big incumbents that have something, but it doesn't go anywhere near to what actually needs to be done to solve these problems, to actually provide value. And so we're like, okay, let's build build there and start there. And that has proven out to be so far a really good approach where we've listened to our customers and we're building up those relationships. And now we have a number of firms that we're building together with and now starting to onboard a lot more firms in part of that process.
So hopefully I sound better because I just realized that my mic was off to the side this whole interview. Greg's going to be mad at me. Sorry.
But you have a fancy mic, Marlene. We don't
I do have a fancy mic. The problem is the fancy mic was way the heck over here, and so I don't know if it was catching my voice enough. So
We'll fix
anyway,
that in post.
yay! All right, now we get to the very important question of what the product does. So, narrative is tackling pricing and margin and scope management in a way that most tools on the market do not. And that's why I think, everybody I saw that was talking about this and saw the demo was very, very excited about it. So, what are the specific gaps that you saw in the market? And, what are the capabilities that firms are telling you that they really need, but they aren't getting from their existing systems?
Amazing question. So I would say, so one ties into what we were talking about before. What are the main business goals, KPIs that we want to achieve? And that ties into, okay, yes, we want to improve our realization rates, which matters. If you're starting at the wrong starting line, it makes a difference as to how much you're going to get at the end of the day. Two, we want to improve the confidence, the relationship that we have with our clients or prospective clients. Clients want predictability. They want to be able to trust what their lawyers are saying is likely to be true. And that ties into how we price deals, how we're quoting, how we're predicting what a work product is going to look like. And three, we obviously want to be working on the most high impactful things and not trying to scrape together sets of scrapes, assumptions, and trying to figure out across our repository of X thousands of matters, what is this likely to be, and so on. What that then translates to is kind of 4 kind of problem solution areas that we've started with, and there's a bunch of other stuff coming up. But the first one is thinking about, okay, as a baseline, it ties into what we were talking about before. We need to improve what is that baseline for how we've done things in the past? What is our visibility and appreciation and understanding of our previous matters? So that's where we start. And we do an exercise of really elevating to about kind of 15% accuracy improvement in terms of understanding and appreciating what has been done in the past, how has it been done, and so on. That then forms a much more solid foundation for the second piece, which is when partners or finance teams are trying to figure out for a new piece of work, where do we start? What is the reference class that is most relevant? That is actually really difficult because I think a partner at a big UK firm used this analogy, which was, and I like to copy it because it's a good one, but it's like if you're doing a kitchen rental of a flat, it makes a big difference whether the flat or the apartment that you're renovating is a modern 2024 apartment or an apartment or a house from the 1900s. Why? Because other factors become relevant. You're talking about, okay, do we actually need to replace some of the electrical, some of the flooring, and so on? And if your contractor doesn't appreciate those kinds of nuances or all of the pieces, or when you're quoting a piece of work, you're not considering all of those reference class components, it makes a big difference. And so what we're able to do is say, okay, these are the relevant matters and why are they relevant? Actually tease out the components that make a difference, whether that's regulatory approvals, different kind of jurisdictions, or from kind of a litigation perspective, the number of the number of witnesses, and so on. And you can go ad infinitum because there's so many different factors that are relevant. And being able to sort through that information, the tens of thousands of matters or projects that a firm has done in the past, is tricky. So that's part 2. Part 3 is, okay, we want to create a reply to what the client wants us to kind of pitch for. There's lots of different variables at play. And so being able to play with all of those variables, whether it's thinking about different AFA arrangements, different fees, different ways of working, the different AI tools that we as a firm are starting to deploy or purchase, and so on, all of those go to what's the cost, what's the profit, what's the leverage, and being able to surface that transparently, but also being able to just play with those different models and different scenarios. Currently, very, very difficult slash almost impossible. And so we help with that as well. And then the final component is thinking, okay, we've generated something, we've hopefully won the deal and so on. How are we tracking our progress? How are we thinking about our work, what's in scope, what's out of scope? How are we helping our partners or senior attorneys think about, okay, how can we continue to improve that relationship or make sure that we are capitalizing on the good work that we're doing and so on, and feeding all of those learnings back into the new work that we're going to be pitching for as well. So kind of closing the loop, thinking about that virtuous life cycle, and it's across those 4 areas that we've kind of been focused on.
Yeah. I know there was a couple of things that you highlighted or uh, that were highlighted for you, probably by Toby Brown, who was there as well,
Yeah.
Mr. Pricing Expert, and he had mentioned the name of the company, Narrative. There's a reason that it's called Narrative, but
Yeah.
also one of the things that I think drove him crazy or still drives him crazy as a pricing professional is when things kind of slowly get out of scope from
Of course.
the original matter from what you were taking on. Do you mind just covering quickly, why you're called narrative, and then two, also about the scope creep that you help kind of identify?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one, I think it's a good title. It's a good name where we can create a lot of fancy slogans. It's
There you
some
go.
point of controlling your narrative, defining your narrative, and so on. But
Marketing is important.
yeah,
Yes.
we still have to come up with a good slogan, Greg. So if you or Marlene have one, great. But it is, it comes from the fact that actually the understanding how things were done in the past and figuring out what that story looks like for the future does sit with our narratives or the time entries that we as practitioners record. That is the first piece of data that we improve and elevate, and it forms a big part of the foundation for everything else that the product does. And so that's kind of the genesis of the name. The second piece of like thinking about, okay, how do we track? I mean, I saw this so much, and I think both of you see this as well. We don't know what's been incurred in a project like until it's been a month later. Also, we might get a number back from billing of like, this is how much has been recorded, but we have no idea of like, okay, is that how much of that is actually what we think or is in line with what we said we would be doing or not? And so that is kind of tying to that fourth kind of problem area and solution space of the kind of the life cycle management. That is something that we've built out and we're helping firms with is keeping track of, okay, this is yes, how much has been incurred, updating the client with that, with automatic updates, and that obviously the lawyer is in charge of and is able to kind of review before anything goes out. But then being able to just transparently record and show internally, okay, this is what's in scope, this is what's out of scope. We're expecting to track what we said or agreed with the client. Actually, maybe we're looking to exceed that. And so just being able to share that information to then be able to have that dialogue with your client, I think it is critical, helps improve those realization rates, but also helps make everyone, hopefully a little bit happier and trust everyone a little bit more. And I think that's critical to being able to have that client come back to you for returning business and vice versa.
Well, before we get to the crystal ball question, we've been throwing a new question at everybody, and I've been looking at your bookshelf behind you, so I can tell you're a heavy reader. So there's just so much going on, and the change is so rapid, as Marlene had mentioned earlier. What do you do to kind of keep up with all of the changes that are going on,
Yeah.
both in the market and with the technology? What's some of your go-to resources?
It's quite a spread. I mean, one, I have like those classic Google Press alerts now with lots of keywords and so on, where it comes in your inbox and you're like, okay, cool, I can scan XYZ things that either topics or people or companies that I'm interested in. Two, it's surrounding yourself, I think, with the right people, I think is quite critical because, things come up as one, of course, is what you get in the public space, but it's, like we were tying into before, everyone kind of seems to know everything in legal or kind of they know everyone. But that's only true if you are talking to the right people. So making
Right.
sure that, that's something we've been obviously doing, whether it's Toby or others, surrounding ourselves with people who are in the know, who are shapers of the industry, and that we're able to get that inside track, both in terms of our thinking, whether that's a product or in the relationship side of things, but also broadly, like just keeping up with the market. And then I think, we actually just hired a new chief of staff as well, who I'm very excited for because there's a bunch of stuff on my plate that I still have to like get through sometimes. Hence why, we have to work quite late into the evenings. But, one of the things she's helping me with as well is thinking about how we can start sharing some of those learnings, sharing some of those learnings with our early adopters, our early kind of partners, and the people around that are, we're hoping to be able to kind of bring on in that kind of capacity, but they're also quite interested in making sure that they keep track of what's happening in the market and so on. So we've just started building up that side of things as well, and we're going to hopefully be able to pay it forward to make sure that we're able to help finance pricing people who are interested in the innovation side of things, but more from a business perspective have that resource as well. And so hopefully that might be relevant to some of the people here.
So, John, we were going to ask you to peer into your crystal ball and give us your impressions of the future. So, in the next few years, do you think firms are going to get better at managing and using their data to improve pricing? Maybe even move to different models of pricing, more value pricing? What else do they need to measure to be able to accomplish this?
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely to the first answer. I mean, I think already we're seeing a lot of impact on that from the firms that we're starting to work with. I think increasingly those kinds of pressures from the client side to think about creative different structures and solutions will be there. I don't think that means in the next 3 or 4 years we're not going to have billables in the same like billable hours and so on. That will just continue to evolve, continue to change, and be combined with other components. But it makes it so critical for firms to start that work, to be able to create those baselines, to be able to say, actually, if we are going to do a fee cap or maybe a percentage of revenue and so on. What does that look like? What are the numbers that we need to see? What can we actually, offer to our clients to help them increase their predictability, increase their confidence, sell it up to either their C-suite or what have you? Because, everyone has KPIs or certain goals that they're trying to achieve and being able to push to whoever they're reporting to as well. And so our job is to be able to make our clients' lives easier, be able to help them with that transition that they're going through as well. And so, from a law firm perspective, that's just part of that evolution. And so those are the core components that I think, we're seeing will hopefully be able to be a part of shaping and evolving. And then thinking about kind of further improvements as well. I think those, being on top of what will actually be happening and changing in the legal work proper, as in, what we're doing on diligence, what we're doing on contract review, what tools are we using, how we're doing that, and so on. Obviously, we can help track those things and also think about kind of how that pipes into the data and the pricing side. But that does kind of ask those big questions of, how are we going to evolve the core business? How are we going to make sure that we maintain or improve the value and the leverage that we're extracting as a business as well? And those are questions that will evolve, like the answers to those questions will evolve over time. And so I don't have those ones, but I know that being able to track, measure, have those right benchmarks, and be able to pipe that into those future works and track that kind of life cycle is going to be critical to helping navigate those questions.
Yeah, the bad data was a 25-year-old overnight problem that we've
It's
uncovered.
shocking how like it hasn't improved. It's mind-boggling,
Yeah,
but here
yeah.
we are.
Yeah, hopefully AI can fix it this time around, right?
Yep.
Yeah, AI and a lot
KM
of
didn't quite fix it. Maybe AI would give two more letters to throw at it.
yeah, why not? No, but like it has opened up. Like the ability and the techniques that we're able to deploy are quite significant. And then that translates to what's the output, what's the value, what's the so what? Because that is just improving things for the sake of improving it is great, cool. But there needs to be a so what. There needs to be a value that goes either to the business and to the client.
All right. Well, John Tertan, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. And it was great meeting you at the Houston Legal Innovators meeting last week.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Likewise, Greg, Marlene, thank you so much for having me, and great to meet everyone on the show.
And of course, thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek and Review podcast. If you enjoy the show, share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out to us on LinkedIn and TikTok.
And John, if any of the listeners want to learn more about narrative, where's the best place to point them to?
Yeah, so two places. I mean, one, narrativehq.com is our domain, so you can have a look. That obviously gives an overview of the product. And also, if you want to get in touch, either to hear more from a kind of the new resource that we're putting together on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, or if you think this kind of stuff might be relevant for the firm that you're working with or for, send me an email at john@narrativehq.com.
And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.